there's a lot of people coming to town looking for work, but the big challenge is how do you find a place to live?
That's the question Williston Mayor Ward Kozer and other city officials are soon hoping to answer. The thriving oil field has created many new jobs in Williams County, but unfortunately, space is very limited.
You have all these people who want to come and rent, and you just don't, you can't respond that fast in rental.
Kozer says when the last oil boom struck in the 1980s, Williston increased its infrastructure, expecting new homes and businesses to be built. He says in many cases that never happened, so as of right now, the city has an adequate number of buildable lots. Kozer says if development continues at its current rate, however, that may not be the case in the near future.
We'll need more lots to build on, and so we need to, in 2010, make sure that developers come in and put in the infrastructure needed for future development.
In Williston, Dan Erdman, KX News.
Looking for Jim Stephen? Chances are you'll find him within the walls of the Williams County Courthouse, usually bright and early, before 7, staking his claim on a spot in an area that quickly fills up.
I think probably over the last 18 months, there's pretty much been 20 or 30 people here every day.
That equals plenty of activity and plenty of work for courthouse employees.
And imagine in your office, if you had 20 or 30 people making hundreds of trips by your desk, asking you questions, slamming books down.
But in order for the oil to flow and in turn profits follow, this work is needed, researching who owns what.
Well, to me, it's like working in a library. It's usually pretty quiet around here. There's some, it's like being in college. I mean, it's being over, and there's some conversation going on, but you've got time to be quiet and do your work.
It's tedious work. Basically, a landman could be described as doing the work Google does online, only it's not even close to as fast. Searching by hand through documents, finding who owns the land that has the precious oil underneath.
And I think Williams County is going to be very busy every day that any other county is. But between here and Montreal and Watford and Dunn, including the reservation, this has the highest potential probably of any place in the United States.
A good place for a landman and landowner to be. Perry Olson, KX News.
This has become a common sight and sound throughout Montreal County in northwest North Dakota, as hundreds of oil trucks rumble through this area every day. Lately, however, the oil race has moved at a slightly slower pace along many local roadways.
But all county roads are 35 miles an hour.
Montreal County Road Superintendent Scott Stamen and his crews have the never-ending task of maintaining local roads to support oil traffic. He says the constant wear and tear on road surfaces has made for some hazardous driving conditions at times, and reducing the speed limit is a good way to reduce that danger.
I think the people know, they've been patient. It's coming, and it's coming hard. Some people don't like to see it once it has changed, but you got to take the good with the bad.
Reductions have also been made along state highways in Montreal County. North Dakota Highway 8 and Highway 23 speed limits both dropped from 65 to 55 in recent months. Now, in addition to reducing speed limits, Montreal County road officials have taken further precautions to reduce the number of accidents. Things like rumble strips on both the shoulder and the center of the road that you can see and hear. Many truck drivers say they're more than willing to decrease speeds if it means an increase in safety.
I've been here since January. Every day there was an accident. And since they changed the speed limit, I haven't seen any accidents.
Oh, it didn't bother me. I think it needed to be on that road, on highway number 8 and 23. It's good.
There ain't but maybe a minute difference from where you need to be if you were doing 65 compared to 55, so. Yeah, it hasn't affected me that much, though.
Stamen says the partnership of the oil industry and Montreal County has been prosperous for both, and he hopes all drivers will take a little extra time to make their job a little easier.
What's your hurry? Take your time. That's the way I see it.
In Stanley, Dan Erdman, KX News.
Last summer's announcement that Halliburton was expanding in Williston, building a huge new headquarters in the town's industrial park, was heralded as another big step forward for the region's economy. And while that's still considered true, the oil service company's purchase of land also caused a problem. There was virtually no space left for the town to offer to other oil-related companies wanting to expand in Williston. Economic Development Director Tom Rolfstead says with more oil rigs coming to the area, it's time to act now.
All this land that we've had to spare has gotten us by for the last 4 or 5 years of pretty good construction years. But suddenly we can see the end of it, and it's like, what are we going to do next?
It's really bigger than us. It is tsunami-like.
Steve Slocum of the Williston Area Development Foundation says with another busy construction year starting, now is the time to be installing infrastructure for projects in 2011 and beyond.
That is why we came up with a recommendation for a special session, since the legislature doesn't meet till January 4th of 2011. Our recommendation for the state's involvement is a guarantee of municipal bonds necessary to underwrite the construction for those infrastructure improvements and extensions. It is a no-cash outlay.
Governor Hovind's office has responded, saying the state can work with local governments without a special session, and whether bringing legislators back to Bismarck is what's needed or not, the Williston officials say there's no time to waste.
We're going to be out of available infrastructure in Williston after the 2010 construction season.
Tom Rofstad says it's important that the state share in the risk of the kind of expansion Williston requires to avoid a repeat of the 1980s, when the city was stuck with $20 million in debt and a shrinking population to pay after the oil business bottomed out. In Williston, Jim Olson, KX News.
Montreal County Sheriff Ken Halverson says he feels like he woke up to the North Dakota State Fair in his backyard one day.
What's happened in Montreal County is something that happened just about overnight.
From possibility to full-on boom, it can be hard to find a North Dakota plate on Stanley's Main Street, and it might take you a little longer to get a bite to eat. But as for law enforcement,
we weren't prepared, and I don't know how you would be prepared for the numerous people and traffic
and more people means more vehicles on the already strained roadways.
With traffic comes accidents. Most of the accidents now involve a semi. And with a semi, you're usually looking at a fatality.
And in his 36 years with the sheriff's office,
I started with the sheriff's department in 1974.
Halverson says he's getting calls from concerned residents that he's never heard before.
This is the first time I've had people saying, Sheriff, have your men write more tickets. We want to see more tickets. Go ahead and dispatch Dwayne and run over and check it out.
It's not that the calls are per se different, they're just coming in at a huge volume.
Well, it's like a double-edged sword. There's a lot of good that's come with the oil. And then again, we have to pay the piper, because basically with that comes the problems. And if we're going to take their money, we got to provide the service.
In Stanley, Catherine Ross, KX News. Even for a lifelong North Dakotan, on a trip west, there's always something new to see.
Over the next ridge, you're going to start to see rigs. And watch them, okay, and look at the traffic east of Minot, and look how different it is west of Minot, and notice how much more trucks there are.
For this group of Grand Forks businessmen, entering Montreal County may be like finding the land of opportunity.
Grand Forks contractors and business people have typically looked to the east. They've looked at Minnesota as where the opportunity is for growth, and we're trying to get them to focus to the west.
And Montreal County leaders are the first to admit they need help keeping up, especially with infrastructure needs.
We don't have enough developers around the communities because housing is a problem. We don't have enough skilled and unskilled workers. It's nice to grow them locally, but it's not a reality.
However, Onstad says when the businesses come, he'd like to see them stay, and they think they have a shot at turning temporary traffic into permanent residents by working with companies within state lines.
And when you see it, all the out-of-state license plates, you know some of that money is leaving the state too. So we just hope that 20 years from now, we still see the same number of people here, but all driving North Dakota plates.
So as East comes west, perhaps they can meet in the middle and build a stronger state in the process. In Stanley, Catherine Ross, KX News.
Kim Steffen wasn't sure she should believe her eyes when she opened this very letter.
I had my husband on the phone when I opened it, and it was like, this has to be a typo. I thought it had to be wrong, but it wasn't. It was correct.
Kim opened the bids, and then she called me immediately. She was pretty excited.
What it was a letter from Denver-based American Oil and Gas offering to lease land to search for oil. 622 acres and an amazing $5,175 per. Do the math. That's about $3.2 million.
Just unbelievable, the money that's coming into the city right now, you know, with the oil and gas.
That dollar figure is an enormous shot in the arm to a city that usually operates on a budget of $200,000 a year. This amount is 16 times that, and it means much needed work can get done.
With the explosion of people moving in here, and the infrastructure is old, and it's been tough on the city.
Our water and sewer was put in the early 50s, 1950 and 1951, it needs to be replaced. Our streets need to be replaced. So of course you wouldn't do the streets until you had the water and sewer done. Curb and gutter needs to be done. Our storm sewers need revamping.
Ranum says the money won't pay for everything that needs updating, but it will relieve the pressure on property owners in town. And then there's this. That $3.2 million could only be a starting point. Should a well be drilled and be successful, the city stands to make even more, earning a percentage of profits and further helping Ray. Perry Olson, KX News.
Williston's Davidson Park has been home to a few tents before. Bikers on cross-country trips have often spent a night there, but suddenly there's a growing number of tents in the park filled with people living there long-term while they work or seek jobs in the oil patch.
Well, with the housing situation we've got in Williston right now and the difficulty in finding lodging, and trying to get enough built in time, some people have taken up the area and started using it for long-term camping.
Williston Park Board President Larry Grondal says some people have expressed concern at having a population of men living adjacent to a large playground and family area.
People are concerned about the new playground, and we don't know who these people are and things like that, but it's caused some issues for our park board.
When I visited the tent city last week, I met 3 men who were unemployed who said they were hoping to find work. The basically homeless men spend their days in the park or visiting the library across the street. But is their presence a concern? I talked with 2 women who had their children at the next door playground.
Yeah, I mean, I think as long as they're staying over, away from the playgrounds and not causing problems with the kids and everything, I don't have a problem with it.
We're lucky we got a company that we could find a place to live. So I kind of feel bad for these people who are in this situation.
What we have found is they've been pretty good stewards of our park. They went over and above sometimes, cleaning bathrooms for us, picking up the garbage.
Grondal says even though the squatters have been good citizens, the park board is going to have to decide what to do about having long-term campers in a park designed for day use.
We never really expected this because we didn't experience this back in the 80s with the Parks and Recreation Department. So this is something that we really weren't quite ready for. And it's getting to a point where we are probably going to have to take it up and deal with it in some type of a policy manner.
For now, the tents will stay, a testament to the intensity of the oil boom that's hitting western North Dakota. In Williston, Jim Olson, KX News. When a new oil rig goes up in western North Dakota, along with the steel and pipe and drill bits, there's another critical component that's needed: water.
It takes a couple million gallons a day to frack for these wells.
That's Ray Mayor Jerry Ranum. He's referring to water needed to fracture or frack rocks to loosen the oil that's hiding in or near the rock formations in the ground around here. And you heard right, each well drilled using the horizontal drilling technique that's described in this oil company's animation, a technique that's unlocked billions of barrels of oil in the Bakken Shale formation, needs millions of gallons of water. And that means municipal water companies are scrambling to find enough water to sustain the oil boom and keep local faucets flowing.
We're updating our plant. We're putting in a 3 million gallon a day plant.
Ranum is talking about the R&T Water Supply Association, R for Ray, T for Tioga. And the association is working on pipelines to increase the amount of water it can deliver each day beyond that 3 million gallon level.
We're working on bringing a 5 million gallon pipeline from Williston. So then we'd have 8 million gallons available of potable water.
There's a large demand.
Monty Myers is the Public Works Director in Williston. That city's water plant can process 10 million gallons of water daily, but with the oil industry needing a state-estimated 9 million gallons of water each day in western North Dakota, that capacity may not be enough soon.
There's a proposal into the governor's office to expand the plant.
It's one of many water system improvements either under construction or being studied to keep up with the increasing mix of oil and water in western North Dakota. In Williston, Jim Olson, KX News.